Welcome to Mission Confidential Training. The goal of this training is to help you understand your role in protecting data and information as an employee or a volunteer of the Samaritans. My name is Anna Hamilton, and I'm a risk management consultant with 25 years of experience managing personal and health protected information. And I am joined today by two awesome colleagues. The first, Lorenzo Wash. Lorenzo is a management development consultant with 25 years of experience working in the HR management space. And Chris Cazada, who is a project management consultant with 15 years or more experience with a special focus on workforce development and management. Anyone who has access to protected health information must complete this required training. Let's talk about our agenda for today. We want to provide you with an introduction to the information protection information that you need, help you understand your role in data protection, a brief survey of the information protection laws that you might encounter, and talk about some best practices to help you comply with the laws. We'll also go over some real-life examples to help you apply it to your day-to-day work life. As an employee or volunteer, you may encounter information that's private, confidential, and/or protected. It's important that you understand each category and how to safeguard that information. Chris and Lorenzo, can you provide some information in your experience on what's considered private, confidential, and protected information in the workplace?
Certainly, Anna. The law defines private information as information about an individual collected as employees of Samaritans. Things like employee or caller names, telephone numbers, email addresses, personnel information specific to an individual, say, for instance, emergency contacts, employee passwords, etc. Conversely, state and federal bodies are charged with managing privacy and regulating how companies handle private information. They can investigate organizations and even fine them for misuse of private information. Chris.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Well, Anna, confidential information is information proprietary to an organization. Organizations define what is considered confidential information in the best way that suits them. For example, confidential information may include customer names, proprietary information such as branding guidelines and databases, supplier names, financial reports, and contract terms. Protected information is information protected under the law and may fall in any one of the following three categories. Protected health information, or PHI, such as medical records, laboratory tests, and insurance information. Secondly, educational information such as enrollment records and transcripts. And lastly, financial information such as credit card numbers, banking information, tax forms, and credit reports. So Lorenzo, I believe that Samaritan employees and volunteers must encounter information throughout the course of their roles that must be handled in a certain way. Can you share with the team what is the best way to protect this data information?
Sure, Chris. To properly safeguard information, you must first understand how to identify confidential, personal, or protected information. Anna will help us with that and define it more a bit later in the training. We must also learn how to protect information. When in doubt, seek out a partner and ask about sharing information. And finally, follow best practices and policies. Samaritans have published policies and processes related to the management of organization data and information. For example, through the Elevate training, employees have been provided guidelines for capturing caller information if necessary.
Thanks, that was great information. Now that we understand the definitions of the different types of information, let's talk about the laws that help us protect information. Lorenzo, can you share some of the laws that might affect the employees and volunteers of the Samaritans?
Happy to do that, Anna. Some of the major laws that protect information are the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, which is also known as HIPAA, or commonly referred to as HIPAA. This federal law was put in place to modernize healthcare information by enhancing privacy. Information Security Acts enacted by state legislatures to protect personally identifiable and health information. Even though Samaritans is not a healthcare organization, HIPAA is included in this training because our employees might have access to someone's protected health information during the course of their employment.
All of these laws really just establish guidelines for information protection. They define what constitutes protected health information and personally identifiable information. They also outline how and when the information should be safeguarded, and they provide a framework for protecting information from accidental or intentional disclosure that isn't authorized. HIPAA's Security and Information Security Act specifically safeguards electronic information. Chris, can you tell us what's considered PHI, or personal protected health information?
Absolutely, Anna. PHI, or protected health information, is individually identifiable health information, including demographic data that relates to three things: a person's physical or mental health diagnosis or symptoms, treatment or care of the condition. This is why when you sign in at a doctor's office or are admitted to a hospital, they ask you who they can share this information with. And lastly, even bills or payments for health services can be considered PHI. A coworker might share a diagnosis with you, and it is okay for someone to share their information, but it is definitely not okay for you to share that information with someone else. For example, if Anna had shared with me that she was having tests that might lead to knee surgery, it is again okay for her to share that with me, but it is definitely not okay for me to share that with others. So Lorenzo, can you share more with our audience on what is considered personally identifiable information?
Sure can, Chris. Personally identifiable information is simply any data that personally identifies you. It might be a name and a phone number. Look at all the data on this slide and imagine how you could identify someone. So there are through account numbers, addresses, vehicle or licenses, geographic information, social security, and the list goes on. In order for the data to be considered PHI and be protected, the data must include a personal identifier and at least a piece of health information.
That's great. That's lots of information. Now that we understand what information must be protected and why it must be protected, let's talk about the best practices we can use to make sure we keep the information we have safe. Chris, can you help us out with some best practices?
Absolutely, Anna. So team, if you regularly handle confidential information, you should take steps to ensure that you protect the data adequately. Here's some best practices for you to follow to keep any information you receive safe. First, ensuring that confidential information is never left unattended. Second, shut down or lock your computer when you are not at the keyboard. Third, establish strong passwords and do not share them with anyone. And lastly, ensure that you only disclose confidential information to those who need to know and only what they need to know. Think of it this way: only provide the minimal information necessary for someone to do their job. Destroy any notes so they cannot be accessed. So Anna, what are some other things you recommend that we can do to safeguard information?
Chris, I think the biggest thing is always being aware of our surroundings and the information that we're sharing. Walt Disney truly had it right. It is a small world after all. You never know when someone is going to know someone else and overhear a conversation that you may think is very private. Be aware that multiple people might use the same phone number. For example, a husband and a wife might share a phone. Be sure that before you share any information, you know who you're speaking to and you're only sharing information that is allowed to be shared. Be aware of your surroundings when talking with a manager or a supervisor or escalating something. Ensure that you're in a private area and that you can't be overheard by someone. Avoid having public conversations in the coffee shop, at the bakery, wherever you might be. Move yourself to a private location to have that conversation. And don't share information on social media sites or vent on other public sites where information could be inadvertently shared. Let's put what we've learned into action by talking through some real life situations. I'm going to share a situation, and Lorenzo and Chris are going to provide us with the answers as to whether the situation was handled appropriately or not. We'll give you a little bit of time between the scenario and the answer to jot down your own thoughts so that you can apply what you've learned in the training today. Let's get started. Jose gets an email from his supervisor asking if he can increase his hours in October when his coworker Clara has her baby. Jose is excited for Clara and more than willing to pick up shifts for her while she's out on maternity leave. When Jose sees Clara, he congratulates her. Clara's really upset that the information was shared. She hadn't told anyone other than her manager, and that was just to find out what her benefits might be. She hasn't even told her parents yet. Chris, has any protected information been shared inappropriate?
Well, Anna, yes. The supervisor should have never disclosed that Clara is pregnant. That is for Clara and only Clara to disclose to others. All Jose needed to know was that the supervisor would be short-staffed during a period of time and was asking for help. If Jose knew this information is disclosed at work in error or made known during the course of work, Jose should have not discussed it with others unless Clara confirmed it was okay.
Great information. Okay, let's take our second scenario and see how we do with this one. Emma takes her third call from Ken within 4 hours. With each call, Ken wants to talk for long periods. He keeps repeating himself and telling her the same thing over and over again. Emma puts a note in the chat to warn the other operators that Ken's called 3 times today. If you see this number, you're going to be on the phone forever listening to his long stories. I think he needs more of his Alzheimer's medication. He tells the same story repeatedly. How about this time, Chris? Have we shared any inappropriate information?
Well, Anna, that's another yes. It was okay for Emma to share that Ken repeatedly called and wanted to stay on the phone. However, Emma should have not have commented on his medication or assumed that he had Alzheimer's. It doesn't matter whether Ken had shared an official diagnosis or if Emma assumed the diagnosis due to the repeated stories.
Awesome. This is our last scenario. So Lorenzo, get ready. This one's yours. Keisha volunteers for Samaritans After Hours at her accounting firm. She takes a call from a caller who's very upset. The caller feels her son is in imminent danger. He's locked himself in his room and will not answer. Keisha knows that she needs to get 911 on the way. She notifies 911 of the situation and gave the caller's address and phone number. Keisha then text messaged her supervisor with all of the details. Keisha has all of the caller information on a bulletin board in her cubicle for her own notes if she needs them in the future. So how about this one, Lorenzo? Have we shared any inappropriate information?
So Anna, actually a tough one, but the information was appropriately shared due to the imminent danger. It was okay for Keisha to release information because the person could cause harm to himself or others. By giving 911 the information they need to do their job and notifying the supervisor, Keisha gives the key people the minimally necessary information to do their jobs. However, posting the information where others could see it violates the privacy rules.
Great point, Lorenzo.
Okay.
Chris, you want to sum things up for us?
Absolutely, Anna. So team, we reviewed a lot of interesting and important information during today's training. Here's some key takeaways from today's training. First, understand your role in data protection. Second, follow the laws that govern the data. Third, apply best practices to protect the data. And lastly, protect data and only share allowable information when necessary. So Anna, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think that summed it up great. I would like to thank Chris and Lorenzo for joining us today in this training session and thank all of you who attended the training. As an employee or a volunteer of Samaritans, you are a critical partner in safeguarding our clients' information, and we appreciate the efforts that you make. Please remember to follow the best practices you learned today, and if you have any questions, reach out to your manager or the administration team as needed.